Hello yet again, you poor viewer. Calling this particular video Prussian 15mm update and also a bit of a hobby update. Firstly, to those of you in good old England, commiserations about the what we call soccer, you call football. Result. Try not to be too downhearted without being facetious. England is at least making finals of tournaments, which is something they haven't been able to do for a long time. And of course, congratulations to the winners, Spain. Now, if that hasn't put you all off completely, yeah, as I say, let's have a look at some 15mm Prussian work and hopefully give you some idea of what I've been up to, which hasn't admittedly been much for the last month. Life has simply got in the way. I won't bore you with the details. And also, I no longer work, but I have been diagnosed with some depression and what's the fancy word? PTSD. I worked in ambulance service for many years, and I admit there are times that I tend to sit here and think, what's the point of it all? You know, Shakespeare was right. But I eventually pulled myself out of it and press on. Anyway, enough of that D&M. Let's have a look at these Prussians, mostly 15mm second generation minifigs with a good smattering of, now I think it's actually chariot miniatures that were produced by Magister Militum. That could be the other way around. If you're looking for excellent information on the Prussian army or on figures or great camera work or excellent commentary, rest assured you've come to the wrong place. Sorry, I almost said the right place. You've come to the wrong place and you should bugger off to eat sweet. No, Magister Militum, I think, was the company and the actual brand was Chariot. Now, I could have that back to front, but anyway, it's mostly second generation minifigs. As is my wont, I've snuck in some units of Saxons and some units of Westphalians, both of which were added to the Prussian army after 1814. As is my wont and explained on earlier videos, I've done that with all the armies. Generally, what I'm aiming for is, inverted commas, armies of about 12 line infantry units. Now, by line, they could be reserve, they could be landwehr, whatever, but generally about 12 units of infantry. 2 to 3 units of elite infantry, somewhere between 6 and 8 units of cavalry, and around about 5 units of artillery. Now, with the artillery, as you can see there, 2 stands is what I mean by unit, and generally each army has 1 heavy unit, which are meant to represent 12-pounders and above, 3, medium, I guess, you know, the 6 to 8-pounders. How I differentiate is way over there, and we'll have a look at them in a minute. The heavies have got 4 artillerymen per base. The medium infantry's got 3 artillerymen per base, and then the horse artillery has got 2 2 artillerymen per base. So 5 units of artillery, 1 heavy, 1 light, and 3 medium. Generally speaking, infantry units are 32 figures, cavalry units are 12. Now you might straight away be thinking, hang on, 12 or even 15 infantry and 6 to 8 cavalry, that sounds like it's too cavalry heavy. In terms of units for the Napoleonic period, it probably is. But the rules I tend to use, 32 figures, 12 figures, it's going to take a lot more hits to get rid of that than it will of that. So the strength of the infantry units tends to be a lot more than the cavalry units. I like rules where cavalry units are potentially devastating, but brittle. I think that encourages historical use of Napoleonic cavalry. They could be decisive, but if they were left somewhere where they could be shot up quite easily, or just the fact that, after several charges, they're not on tanks, the horses would get tired. I think the expression is blown. So they're a resource that needs to be preserved, husbanded, I think is the old-fashioned way of saying that. Oh dear, the feminists will be coming for me. And I've tried to do that with all of the armies. Some armies, such as the British and the Spanish, are on the smaller side. My British armies, generally without any allies, is only about 8 infantry and I think it's 4 cavalry. But that's because in my intended campaigns, which is what this is all aiming for in the future, is that the British will be fighting in Spain with Spanish allies, and of course in the 100 Days campaign, I'll be taking out the couple of Portuguese units, but I'll be adding in Brunswickers and the other, Netherlands, Dutch, Belgians, Nassau, all the other various components to increase the size of that army. Anyway, here we are, 8 minutes in, and all I've done is drivel. So let's get on with it. Okay, let's hit the old pause button. Okay, so directly in front of us here is what I consider to be the Prussian sort of heavy cavalry, dragoons at the rear. You might notice 1, 2, 3 stands of what seem to be genuine Prussian cuirassiers. What the hell are these? This is my attempt at the Saxons. As I say, Saxons and Westphalians, both infantry and cavalry, were added to the Prussian army after the 1814 campaign. Now the cuirassiers, of course, never got to Waterloo, as neither did the Foot Guards or the Grenadiers, but I like to have them. And again, it just breaks up the monotony a bit of the colours. I think that's the Zastrow cuirassiers there. I forget the name of these ones, sorry. As I said, I'm a ball of information. But that's meant to be the heavy cavalry, if you like, corps. Generally, I like rules where each unit represents a brigade. But of course, I try and be flexible so I can play rules like, modern rules like GDA2 and Shako, the old Shako 1, Shako 2. There's no reason why these can't be, regiments. Okay, moving along. Okay, so here we've got the bulk of the foot. line infantry, or regular, I guess, at the front. Then what minifig used to describe as reserve units, pointing at them directly, second from the rear. Landwehr with their long coats immediately straight behind. And then the cavalry, sorry, that's attached to each inverted commas corps. And then you've got your artillery at the front. So basically you've got, in my world, you've got two corps there consisting of 4 infantry units, cavalry at the back, and medium artillery there at the front. Commanders there at either side. Now again, of course, I still haven't got round to flocking bases as yet. And likewise, the commanders will eventually be put on round bases with a couple of commanders on each base. Over here, a couple of lots of skirmish infantry. Sorry, I'm wobbling the camera again. Over here, we've got our allies, allied corps. You've got Saxons there on the left, Westphalians on the right, cavalry at the back there, not quite completed artillery there at the front. This funny little unit here at the front has got Jagers at the front and Magdeburg. I think blue was Magdeburg at the back there. There's a reason for those. We'll come back to that in just a minute. And then what eventually is going to be my guard unit. White plumes and black plumes to differentiate the 2 units. Now there's a bit of confusion in my mind about which one is the combined grenadiers and which one is the foot guards. I've got the Osprey book, Prussian Line Infantry 1792-1815, and with all due apologies to the author, Peter Hofschrauer, I've doubtless butchered that, apologies. But what's written in the text doesn't seem to match the pictures. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. You're bored already. Over there, Prussian Guard Dragoons, and then Prussian Guard Cuirassiers will go at the front there, and that'll be my guard unit. I found the chariot cavalry variable in size. Generally, if you keep them separate from the minifigs, they're not so different. They are bigger, but they're not so different that they stand out. The horses are about the same size, but the men tend to be much bigger. I did buy a packet of chariot cuirassiers to do the guard cavalry, but while the horses match the minifig horses, the men on them, even compared to those dragoons at the rear there, are absolutely huge. Also, those of you who are sharp-eyed will have noticed that my Prussian 12-pound battery there with the 4 figures, it's got Austrian guns on it. That's a case of using what you've got. I'm tossing up whether to order from Essex because I found Essex to be quite compatible, as long as, again, often kept separately from the minifigs, but in their own units seem to match the old second-gen minifigs quite nicely for size. Whether or not I lash out and buy myself some Prussian 12-pound artillery just to replace those, or whether I say, oh, look, don't be silly, they're only toy soldiers, go with what you've got. Now, the bags here at the front represent leftovers and possibilities. Now, I was going to say about this funny little spare unit sitting here. let's just come back over here for a minute. Yeah, let's try and bolster this up just a bit. Okay, just put you on pause for the minute. I think someone's at the door. Okay, back again. One of the advantages of playing at the, say, battalion level, much easier to, I think anyway, to represent sort of more accurate historical orders of battle as opposed to brigades. I'll give you an example here and what I mean and why I've got this sort of pile of incomplete figures over there. Let's just, excuse my arm for a minute, let's just bring this over here. Okay, so by rights, those of you in the know, after 1808, Prussian regiments were meant to consist of 2 battalions of line infantry, 1 battalion of fusiliers, and then 2 companies of grenadiers, which in this scale would be probably that. And then, of course, two together would form a brigade. The 2 companies of grenadiers from each regiment would be put together to form a grenadier battalion. Now, so I tend to go for more of a big battlefield blucher, probably one of my favourite rules. Now, of course, you immediately have a problem with how do you depict that. You could probably have this and say 4 grenadiers, and then these other 4 figures here, you could make them volunteer Jager as such, were often attached. What I decided to do, and then to confuse things, of course, then the grenadier companies eventually, they all got taken out to form their own, the grenadier battalions got taken out of each brigade and formed into a grenadier division. So I decided to simply use standard figures, standard infantry figures. Those of you in the know, I forget the exact order of seniority. I think it was white straps for the 1st regiment, red for the 2nd, was it yellow for the 3rd, and light blue for the 4th. But anyway, I digress. Now, so that's fine for playing, you know, where that represents a whole brigade or regiment or whatever. What happens if I want to represent a battalion? Well, what I did was I came up with the idea, you know, so at battalion level, you probably want to have the fusiliers represented separately. Some rules it matters, some rules it doesn't. But say if I wanted to just make this an ordinary battalion instead of a whole brigade, my cunning plan, Baldrick, was I would replace that stand with either, from that lot of spares over there, replace it with either a Jager or one of the Magdeburg stands, just to show that at battalion level it was just a line unit. And obviously the Magdeburg doesn't match up with the rest, which I think is meant to be East Prussian. Various shades of red used in the Prussian army. So that was the point of this little group over here. Pop those back there. And of course, different rule systems, different requirements. If I'm going to play GDA2, I probably haven't got quite enough skirmish stands. So I've got a bag here of chariot. Oh, it's fallen out. Chariot miniatures. Let's take a couple out and we can compare. Now I believe Magister Militum it seems to be a growing trend in the UK. Magister Militum are going, well, not going bust, but they've decided to pull the pin. So here's your minifig Jager, and there's your, here's your Magister Militum Chariot Prussian Jager. As I say, look, you might be able to mix them together. I prefer to keep them on separate stands. Let's pop that over there. One thing I will point out, the Prussian Jager still have the, what do you call those things on the bottom of the feet, bottom of the leg? Oh, mine's gone blank. Told you I'm getting old. Whereas the Magister Militum ones just seem to have them in trousers, gaiters. Yeah, the minifig ones have the gaiters, whereas the Magister Militum ones don't seem to. Not a bad little figure. Might be interesting to see how they paint up. But yeah, if I'm going to play GDA 2, I've probably got to paint at least another 4 stands of Jagers. Thought about chopping these back to 3 or even 2 figures per stand. I mean, that's a possibility, but again, I've always quite liked the mass effect. I like big battles. My original idea behind having these, and the reason I put them on 4 figures per stand, was that you know, things like Hougoumont, La Haisson, and other strong points, Papillon, was that these would be the guys, they would actually represent an entire unit on their own, and they would represent the defenders of a strong point spread out. You know, the sandpit at Waterloo, Aspern, Essling, etc., etc. That was my original idea. So I quite like the 4 figures on a stand, but of course that's more that you've got to have. Yeah, quite a few leftovers. Now, if I do playing GDA 2 or some other such system, and I decide to hook out these to make a separate Fusilier unit, I've got enough to make only 1 Fusilier unit. So here I've got 32 Fusiliers, which I could make up as another Fusilier unit. These figures here, these are the Overcoat March Attack, which match these figures here. So I could replace perhaps these figures with these actual figures that match the front ones here. Spare Magister Chariot, they call them Magister Militum, but I think they're, yeah, whatever. Some, you know, I've got spare packets of those. These are 2 lots of 16 line infantry that I could use to make at least the front ranks of 2 more units. So I could take those plus the spares here if I replace them with that. And then use the spare Fusiliers to make another 2 lots of 32. These here, again, sold as reserve infantry by minifigs. I strongly suspect that in summer, a lot of landwehr would have just worn short coats as well. So I really don't see a problem using these as landwehr as and when the need arises, but they're spare. I'm actually going to use about 16 of these in two Hanoverian regiments. Now the Hanoverians, of course, wore British uniform, but they did also wear this soft cap. Now I'm not talented enough, like Paul Alba and many of you, I suppose, to actually cut the heads off and do head swaps. That's beyond my pay grade, I'm afraid. But just putting, say, 2 of these in each 8-figure Hanoverian unit with the red cap and the yellow band below. Now, of course, unfortunately, they've got the blanket roll on them, which is, not how they're usually portrayed. They should be in just a straight British uniform. But they've just got trousers on, and for the sake of 2 figures, and I think it's probably reasonable to expect that, yeah, look, probably some of the Hanoverians, indeed, of all the armies, may well have put the coat roll, blanket roll, whatever it is, over the shoulder, just for a little bit of protection against sword cuts. I don't think we can be too dogmatic in saying that no Hanoverian would have actually done that. So, but I'm still left with 16, 32, 48 of these left over. Anyway, so that's the Prussian progress. I might call it quits now on these 15mm Napoleonic videos. Oh, thank God, you all say. Until I've actually got everything finished and I've started either doing battle reports or started the planned campaign. What I'm hoping to do is a campaign where you have a series of linked battles starting in 1805. The French will start out a bit stronger than everyone else, and then towards the end, everyone else will be a bit stronger than the French, till you get to Waterloo anyway. Points assigned, if the French win the battle, they get a point, and vice versa. I found through experience at CanCon, which is the big convention, that a series, the best campaigns have been where you've had a series of battles that are linked. There's no map movement as such or manoeuvring, etc., etc. It's just a series of linked battles, but the outcome of battle A affects the force composition of battle B. The outcome of battle B affects the force composition of battle C, morale, all that sort of stuff. I found them to be the best. And also, rather than saying, right, well, Fred's the British, Andrew's the French, Dave is the Prussians, rather than allocating individuals to individual nations, simply whoever shows up on the day, all right, well, today, Andrew, you're the Prussians, Dave, you're the British, etc., etc. And that way, your campaign doesn't get handicapped by somebody who's been allocated a specific nation not showing up. Anyway, I just offer that for what it's worth. Yeah, all right. Well, let's finish the Prussian ramble there, and we'll finish with just a few thoughts. Welcome back. You've just been looking at some pictures of some projects, and in front of you is a project, Battle of Britain board game. My good friend Alex and I, ever since we first met some 47 odd years ago, have loved the Battle of Britain movie, loved everything about the Battle of Britain. You know, not the death, the dying, but the planes and everything else. And we had big plans for this particular game. We were going to make it a bit more historical, modify the board. I bought lots of extra planes. We were going to modify the combat system and, yeah, do all sorts of things. But unfortunately, poor old Alex, he got cancer right about the time that COVID hit. Yeah, thanks for that. And sadly, he lost his fight recently. So this is a project, not too sure whether I'll ever continue with this or not. Maybe in the future. Don't want to be morbid. But one of the things that I've learnt about losing my best friend, yet again, carpe diem, seize the day, time waits for no one. And now it's only me, it's only my viewpoint, but I want to get in and I want to get things done. I want to get things finished. The pictures you were just looking at, the Star Wars Legion and Star Wars X-Wing, no more painting or anything like that to be done on those. They just need to be organised. The Batman collection, that needs to be, again, organised into its various groups. I've got the 66, funny Batman TV show section, the animated series figures, and then there's the gritty Nolan section. That needs a few figures there, as you saw, need to be finished up, and the rules and everything else organised. The pictures of the board game Victory in the Pacific and War at Sea. Look, apologies to anyone who may be waiting for a follow-up on that. If you've seen the video, that was where it's basically a strategic level board game of the War at Sea, the entire ocean, the entire planet in World War II. Again, that was a project that Alex and I were working on, and yeah, unfortunately, just like this one, yeah, at least temporarily, it's come to a bit of a halt. But yeah, look, life goes on, and what I've learnt is, yeah, get things organised so that, you know, if and when the inevitable happens, things are at least easier for those left behind. I'm going to, not that I have a huge amount, but I am going to go downsizing if I haven't used it for X amount of time. It's either being sold or given away. Regarding YouTube itself, I've had a few dislikes popping up ever since I put the videos in the public realm. No nasty comments or anything like that, thankfully. I'm well aware that, you know, social media is the playground of trolls and fanatics and nasty people wanting to impose their view of the world on you. But no, I've been very fortunate that way. So yeah, but just a few dislikes, often on the most innocuous of videos. Now I know I'm not very good at this. The only reason I ever took up YouTube was at the urging of several people who said, yeah, come on, join the community, you know, the war game online community. Rather ironically, many of them who did all the urging, they're not part of the community anymore, at least not that I can tell. They haven't posted for many a year. I've never been interested in growing the channel, you know, subscribers, giveaways. To me, that's all. You know, if that rocks your world, good on you, but it's never been my focus. I've always just been interested in talking, you know, via this medium to other wargamers, seeing what they're up to, seeing what ideas they've got, and you know, maybe sharing a few ideas that maybe we can all get into. I've always thought that I would be much better off doing a blog. But anyway, took the plunge. I will continue. Videos now are going to be far more spaced out. I'm not going to present anything now until it's done. Game reports, hopefully, they might be a bit more worthwhile. But yeah, as I say, the thing I've learned is get it done. And that's now going to be my focus. I do want to get back to the ancients again, my 28mm ancients collection. I've got Romans and a Carthaginian army, Republican Roman and Carthaginian armies to work on. They were meant to be my retirement project, and here I am many years, well, quite a few years now into my retirement, rapidly approaching 70, and I haven't made much headway at all. So that's my plans now. All right, so look, let's leave it there. I'm starting to ramble. Look after yourselves. Take care. Enjoy your hobby. I try and watch as many of your videos as I can. And I will keep posting my progress for what it's worth, for those of you who have been so kind to follow me and even just communicate with me thus far. All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.